where the 20th Maine was placed on July 2nd, 1863. And if you have ever seen the movie Gettysburg, you know about the famous 20th Maine commanded by Joshua Lawrence Chamberlain. And this is the monument dedicated to the 20th Maine Volunteer Infantry Regiment up here on Little Round Top. So this monument right here is basically marking the end of the flank of the 20th Maine Volunteer Infantry. I'm going to try to find a flat spot to place my tripod. That's perfect. So basically, to give a little bit of historical biography about the 20th Maine, they were part of the 3rd Brigade, 1st Division of the 5th Army Corps. And Joshua Chamberlain was told by Brigadier General Strong Vincent over there to place his regiment here. It was then, the order of command was the 16th Michigan, the 44th New York, the 83rd Pennsylvania, and the 20th Maine right here. And it is, it is debated if this was the end of the line of the Army of the Potomac. There are actual studies that I've researched that say that there were also sharpshooters and also elements of the Union Army over to the farther left side trying to protect this flank. But in essence, the nitty-gritty explains that this is the strong defense, the strong flank of the Union Army. And that's why Brigadier General Strong Vincent told Joshua Lawrence Chamberlain at the beginning of the battle, he said to Chamberlain, he said, this is the end of the line. If this breaks, the whole flank will fold, which is true. So that's when the Alabamians, when they were coming up on this hill on July 2nd, 1863, it was such a strong position. It was so vital to be able to take this because Hood's division was already flanking up this hill. They were already trying to basically collapse the fishhook from this part all the way up to the summit of Little Round Top, basically the famous prominent clearing. So basically, to go through the details of the engagement between the Alabamians and the boys of Maine, not only were there men of the 20th Maine up here fighting, but also men of the 2nd Maine, basically men that refused to fight during the Battle of Gettysburg because their enlistment papers, they didn't agree with the terms of the enlistments. But they actually decided to fight with the 20th Maine because of Chamberlain's historic speech. So basically, to summarize, because I know Yins don't want to listen to this for 3 hours, because why would you? But this is the approximate battle line that this battle happened. The Alabamians under Oates were coming up this hill to be able to press and throw the 20th Maine off of this line to be able to collapse it, like I already said. So let me just go to my notes. Okay. During the charge, a second enemy line of the 15th and 47th Alabama tried to make a stand near a stone wall. For a moment, it looked though that the Confederates might break this line. But fierce fighting back and forth. They were able to push the Alabamians back, but the Alabamians came back multiple times, as portrayed in the movie Gettysburg. So after a while, after desperate fighting, Joshua Chamberlain was then basically forced to make a split-second decision because of lack of ammunition. And with the wounded piling up, he made the executive decision. He said, well, we have to basically push down the hill. Okay, we don't have the ammunition. We don't have the sufficient supplies and ammunition anymore to repel these Alabamians for coming up the hill. So he said, we're going to have a bayonet charge running down the hill, which for many Indians, seeing this landscape here, you can see the portrayal of the wall that the 20th Maine, oh my God, the 20th Maine was hiding behind on July 2nd, 1863. While standing on this boulder, we can see the clearing of approximately where the Alabamians were coming up on July 2nd, 1863. And as you might realize, the 20th Maine was starting up here fighting, and the Alabamians were coming up this hill engaging with the 20th Maine. Chamberlain ordered a charge, swinging like a door. swing like a door, remember? And all of a sudden, the 20th Maine swung this way and was able to push the Confederates down the hill. A very genius, heroic move and decision by Chamberlain. But Chamberlain, yes, is a historic, heroic man. But what's really interesting, though, is it's like the hand of God saved him on July 2nd, 1863. A little fun fact about Chamberlain, you probably don't know, is that during the course of the battle, there was a Confederate marksman or sharpshooter on a boulder, and he had Chamberlain in the line of sight. He was able to see him perfectly, and he said to himself, should I or should I not shoot him? Well, all of a sudden, he said, something told me not to shoot that man, not to shoot Chamberlain. So when Chamberlain became governor of Maine, that same Confederate soldier wrote Chamberlain a letter and said, during the Battle of Gettysburg on July 2nd, I had you in my sight perfectly, and something told me not to shoot you, and I am so thankful and glad that I didn't shoot you that day. So it's ultimately like Chamberlain's life was spared on July 2nd because that sharpshooter or that marksman could have had an easy target. He had an easy target. Full line of sight, could have easily picked him off, but he decided not to because a higher power intervened and decided not to take Chamberlain's life, which is very interesting. But that's just a little fun fact about the defense of Little Round Top. So right now I'm going to the summit, to the famous clearing where this is the line of the 83rd Pennsylvania, my home state PA, extending this way, going up the hill, connecting with the 44th New York. And what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be talking a little bit more about this line up here. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to make my way down Little Round Top into the famous Devil's Den. So this piece of stone marks the approximate location of where Brigadier General Strong Vincent was shot on July 2nd, 1863, but he was not killed on July 2nd. He died July 7th, 1863, a couple days after the end of the Battle of Gettysburg. Now, to give a little bit of biographical insight on Strong Vincent a wee bit. Strong Vincent was born in 1837. He was 26 years old, which is very, 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 very close to my age. And he was a brigadier general. He was born at Waterford, Pennsylvania, near Erie, Pennsylvania. And he graduated from Harvard in 1859, and he studied law, passed the PA bar exam within a year, and opened a practice up in Erie, Pennsylvania. So at this time, Colonel Strong Vincent's brigade of Barnes Division and Sykes' 5th Corps included, like I said before, back there, the 16th Michigan, the 44th New York, the 83rd Pennsylvania, and the famous 20th Maine. And so Strong Vincent, when he was telling Chamberlain down in that area that I was in, the famous engagement between the 20th Maine and the Alabamians, Strong Vincent told Joshua Chamberlain, he said, you must hold to the last man. You cannot let this position fall, because if you do, they will flank us. They will then take that part of the battlefield, and then they will push up, and then this whole flank will fold, and then they will be able to fold the whole line going all the way down Cemetery Ridge. But that is who Strong Vincent was. Strong Vincent, like I said before in some of my previous videos here today, he was a Pennsylvania boy. And he said that there would be nothing more honorable, there is nothing more honorable as a Pennsylvanian to die on Pennsylvania soil while fighting to preserve and defend the Union. And that is honestly who Strong Vincent was. And I, as a Pennsylvania boy, could honestly commend that, because that is the truth. I fully support that as a Pennsylvania boy, as a proud Pennsylvanian, because these guys believed in states' rights. They believed in your states are your country. Your state is your true home. And I believe that Pennsylvania was his true home. The Union, yes, he loved the Union, but Pennsylvania was so beloved to him, it was so precious to him, that he died here on Pennsylvania soil, and he was wounded at the Battle of Gettysburg and died at 26 years old. And that is very commendable and honorable. So the privilege to be able to stand here and share this with you, because this is very important history up here on Little Round Top that not too many people dive into and understand. But anyway, I'll meet you at the open clearing that everybody in the world goes to because it's majestic. Wait until you see it. So this right here is the famous clearing, the open valley that you can see. So right down there, that clump of rocks down there is the famous Devil's Den. And over here, it goes into, shows the wheat field, the peach orchard, the whole Confederate battle line. And as you can see, it goes all the way down. You can see Cemetery Ridge all the way down there. But I don't know if you can see the statue right there, but there's a statue of General Gouverneur Warren right there. And I'm going to give a little bit of biography and a little bit of context on why he is so important and why he was a prominent hero of the Battle of Gettysburg decades ago. I mean, Chamberlain gets a lot of prominence, a lot of praise up here because of the movie, the Battle of Gettysburg, but Gouverneur K. Warren should get a lot of praise and prominence and a lot of highlights too. So Brigadier General Gouverneur Kimball Warren, born 1830, died 1882, grew up in Cold Spring, New York, right across the Hudson River from West Point. And so Warren's actions on Little Round Top on July 2nd demonstrated clearly how a senior leader in the heat of crisis could recognize a threat, assess its danger, and form a workable plan and follow it to its execution. A century later, his decision-making on July 2nd became a standard example of sound command initiative using the U.S. Army leadership. So basically, the reason why he's so important is because he noticed the topography in the landscape on this hill. He noticed that this hill was uninhabited by the Army of the Potomac on July 2nd. So rather than letting it fall into Confederate hands, letting this high ground fall into Confederate hands, he decided to come up here and tell the Corps commanders, tell the leadership, we need to get troops up on this hill. We need to get men up on this hill to defend this hill because the Confederates are coming that way. Longstreet's Corps, Longstreet is sending his divisions across the battlefield to swing around here in order to flank up Big Round Top in order to seize Little Round Top from the side. And so specifically, let's see, go back to this page. So in order to prevent that from happening, because what's going to happen is that the Confederates are going to come up here, they're going to seize this high ground, and they're going to be able to flank the rest of Cemetery Ridge down in the valley over there. Okay, once they get artillery up here, they're going to cut down some trees and shoot down the valley, and it's going to be a disaster for the Union. So right here on Big Round Top, Law's 15 and 47th Alabama and Robertson's Alabamians and Texans are starting to flank around Big Round Top onto Little Round Top. So what's happening is that because of Gouverneur Warren, Brigadier General Strong Vincent, and not only Vincent's brigade coming up this way, swinging around this way of Little Round Top, so to show yins. So not only is Gouverneur Warren's men swinging this way, but they're also connecting along that aspect too, that part of the hill. So that way, it's creating a strong defense. So as the Confederates are flanking up Big Round Top, trying to come up Little Round Top, they're able to be defended and prohibit that flanking maneuver. And it was a very, very important thing to happen, because if this hill would have been taken by the Confederates, it would have been disastrous for the Union Army in general, going all the way down Cemetery Ridge to Cemetery Hill, the famous fish hook. But anyway, I'm going to go down the hill. I'm going to go to Devil's Den and talk further about what happened down there. So this is very interesting. It says, standing in the spot, Private John West of the 4th Texas Infantry surveyed the rocky hill above Little Round Top, and he was ordered to assault this hill. West wrote that it was a mass of rock and boulders amid which a mountain goat would have reveled. So as you can see here, that we're standing here, the 44th Alabama, 48th Alabama, 4th Texas, 5th Texas, 4th Alabama, 47th Alabama, 15th Alabama, they all decided to attack Little Round Top July 2nd, 1863. So as you can see, these 5 regiments decided to come straight up this hill. And I couldn't imagine what that would have been like on July 2nd to scale this hill. Look at the terrain on this. It's absolutely awful. And so they were ordered to scale up this hill while being shot at the Union up on top of this hill defense line. And then, as I mentioned before, the 47th and 15th Alabama went around that direction, this side of the hill, and scaled to try to dislodge the 20th Maine. And so, as you can see, up here, that is Big Round Top over there, and this is Little Round Top over here. And right over that foliage right there is the famous Devil's Den. So right here, I'm standing in between the 4th and 5th Texas. So the 4th Texas would be right here, and the 5th Texas would be right here, scaling this rocky hill, July 2nd, 1863. It was an absolute massacre. I mean, because think about it. The Union troops up on top of Little Round Top, they have the high ground. They're shooting down the hill. So those Texans and Alabamians, they're literally scaling that hill, trying to dislodge the Union troops on top of the hill. And it was a bloodbath. I read in a book of a guy, I think it was in an Alabama regiment. He said, it was awful. Those Yankees were picking us left and right, pools of blood everywhere, men falling left and right. We were hiding behind boulders. We were scared. That is the ultimate, truth about that struggle to take Little Round Top, is that it was not an easy objective, and ultimately the Union kept the high ground and the Confederates were repulsed multiple times. But it just shows how absolutely courageous both sides were, especially if we were going to admire a side, if we were going to commend a side. I would assume that we would commend the Confederacy, because the Confederates were fighting uphill basically in the elements on July 2nd. I mean, it is ultimately an insurmountable task, but they were willing to do it. They were following orders, and they knew they were going to get butchered, which they did. But rather than disobeying orders and bringing dishonor to their states of Texas and Alabama, they decided to scale up that hill and try to dislodge the Union. So that is a aspect of the battle that we should highlight and we should commend. But anyway, I'm going to go over to Devil's Den and talk further about what happened over here.